Opening with Leon's awakening. Leon's body felt heavy, his limbs sluggish as he slowly blinked his eyes open. The soft morning light filtered through the unfamiliar room, casting a warm glow over the wooden walls and unfamiliar furnishings. His muscles ached as if every part of him had been through a fight, and knowing his luck, it probably had. Ugh, Leon groaned, wincing from the sharp twinge in his side. Before he could sit up properly, a cheerful, high-pitched voice cut through the haze in his mind. Dad, you're awake. Mune, the tiny half-dragon child, stood beside him, her bright tail flicking back and forth like an excited puppy. Leon stared at her for a moment, his thoughts slow to catch up. Dad? That word still didn't sit well with him, no matter how often she said it. He dragged himself upright, glancing around the room with a confused frown. Ugh. How did I get back here? He muttered, rubbing his eyes. Mune beamed. It was Mom who brought you back? Her tail wagged harder, a blur of excitement. At the mention of her, Leon's mind immediately darkened. Images of last night's encounter flooded back, Rossweisse's cold, calculating gaze, the sharp sting of her claws, and his failed escape attempt. A scowl spread across his face. Damn it, she finally caught me like prey. His thoughts were interrupted when he noticed something strange. His hand was wrapped in a bandage, the white cloth neatly tied around the wound Rossweisse had inflicted. What is? Leon muttered, turning his hand over in disbelief. Mune's golden eyes sparkled with pride. I'm the one who bandaged it for Dad, she chirped, practically glowing under the hope for praise. Leon blinked at her. Dragons are supposed to be ferocious, he thought, recalling everything he knew from years of dragon hunting. They grow up steeped in violence and blood from birth, but this child... He glanced down at the little girl, who looked up at him with nothing but pure adoration. She's nothing like the dragons I've known. Could it be because she was a hybrid, a mix of dragon and human? Or maybe, Mune's innocent affection was something he simply wasn't prepared for. With a small, awkward smile, Leon reached out and patted her head. Well, Mune is awesome. Mune giggled, the sound light and happy. Hee. Leon's smile deepened for a moment, but then he leaned in, lowering his voice. Mune, you're cute now, but when you grow up, promise me you won't become like your mother. Mune tilted her head in confusion. Ha! Just then, a familiar voice drifted from behind him, low, calm, but carrying an edge of warning. And what's wrong with being like me? Leon's heart skipped a beat as he turned to see Rossweisse standing in the doorway, her silver hair catching the morning light. How does she always sneak up on me like this? Leon thought, swallowing hard as he looked away from her piercing gaze. And nothing. Oblivious to the tension, Mune happily held up Leon's bandaged hand. Mom, look. Mune bandaged Dad's wound just like you told me to. Rossweisse gave a brief nod, her expression cool and unreadable. This is what you should do. Yes, Mom. Mune replied with eager obedience. Watching the exchange, Leon couldn't help but feel the weight of Rossweisse's strictness. What a strict mother, he thought with a sigh. Patting Mune on the head again, he offered her a conspiratorial smile. Mune, how about you go hide in the garden? I'll count to 100, and then I'll come find you, okay? Mune's eyes lit up with excitement. Really? Dad wants to play hide and seek with Mune. Leon chuckled. Of course. Now, go quick, before I start counting. Mune let out a delighted squeal and bolted for the door. Oh no, don't count so fast, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Leon started counting slowly, watching her tail flick as she disappeared around the corner. Leon confronts Rossweisse. As soon as Mune was out of sight, Leon dropped his cheerful facade and turned to Rossweisse, his expression serious. Hey, I need to talk to you. Rossweisse raised an eyebrow. What? Aren't you being a little too hard on her? Leon asked, crossing his arms. Rossweisse's gaze didn't waver. We dragons all go through this. Only by being strict with our children from a young age can we cultivate strong warriors. Leon groaned, running a hand through his messy hair. But she's not fully dragon. And besides, Mune is adorable. How can you stand to be so cold toward her? Rossweisse's silver eyes narrowed slightly. She is a dragon. And calling a dragon cute is an insult? Leon smirked. You're pretty cute, too. The moment the words left his mouth, Rossweisse's expression shifted. She grabbed him by the collar, yanking him toward her with surprising force. Her breath was warm against his ear as she whispered, You're just a slave for me to vent my anger on. Don't get ahead of yourself. Leon's face paled. Satisfied with his reaction, Rossweisse released him and stepped back, smoothing her hair with an air of superiority. I am the queen of the silver dragons. I have many responsibilities, so the task of raising the child is yours. Before Leon could protest, Rossweisse leaned in once more, her voice soft but firm. That child likes you, Leon. Don't disappoint her. Mune's trick. As Rossweisse left the room, Leon let out a heavy sigh. It's like being a dragon slayer means I'm stuck babysitting. Just then, out of the corner of his eye, Leon spotted a familiar little figure peeking out from behind a pillar. He smirked. Mune, did you really think I wouldn't notice you? He called out playfully, Found you, Mune. But instead of giggling and coming out, Mune's expression was strange. She stared at him for a moment, then suddenly turned and ran off. Myun. Leon blinked in confusion. Hey! Wait! He took off after her, weaving through the hallways. Why are you running? What's wrong? He followed her down the corridor, but when he rounded the corner, she was gone. What the? Leon scratched his head in frustration. I just saw her pass this way. Suddenly, a soft giggle sounded behind him. Got you, Dad. Leon whirled around to see Myun standing right beside him, grinning from ear to ear. Wait, didn't you just run past me? Myun tilted her head in confusion. Nope. Dad couldn't find me, so I came to find you. Leon blinked, his mind racing. Did I imagine it? Before he could dwell on it, Myun grabbed his hand, tugging him toward the garden. Come on, Dad. I want to show you something. As Leon let himself be pulled along, as they headed deeper into the garden, Leon failed to notice another figure lurking in the shadows, a second Myun, silently watching them from a distance. The Garden of Secrets. Leon followed Myun through the garden, the vibrant colors of the flowers around them contrasting sharply with the heaviness in his heart. Each petal seemed to bloom with life, a reminder of the innocence he so desperately wanted to protect. Where are we going, Myun? He asked, trying to keep his tone light despite the undercurrent of unease that had settled in his gut. To my secret spot, she exclaimed, her eyes wide with excitement. You're gonna love it. Leon couldn't help but smile at her enthusiasm. It was contagious, and he found himself swept up in her joy, even as questions nagged at the back of his mind. What's so special about it? He probed, feigning curiosity to keep the conversation flowing. It's a surprise. Myun giggled, pulling him along as she led him deeper into the foliage. As they navigated through the garden, Leon took a moment to observe his surroundings. The garden was a realm of beauty, filled with vibrant flowers and lush greenery. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting playful shadows on the ground. It was a stark contrast to the battles he often found himself in, a peaceful sanctuary that felt foreign yet comforting. He recalled the last battle he had fought, the feeling of the sword in his hand and the adrenaline coursing through his veins. But now, as he played hide-and-seek with his daughter, it felt as though those moments of violence belonged to a different life, one he was desperately trying to escape. Here we are, Myun exclaimed, her voice pulling him from his thoughts. They arrived at a secluded spot in the garden, a small clearing surrounded by tall, flowering bushes. In the center stood a gnarled tree with branches that reached toward the sky, its trunk wide and sturdy. Myun's eyes sparkled as she pointed at the tree. Isn't